Ready? Call the meeting to order. If you'd stand for the pledge of the flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you remain standing, Dennis can open us with prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to conduct the business of the town. We ask for your wisdom and your guidance in making sound decisions that benefit all. Thank you for those that have plowed streets and been out in the snow. Thank you for their safety. And thank you for the safety of those abroad protecting our freedoms. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, first order of business. The floor is open for nominations for council president for 2025.
I nominate John Perrin.
I second the nomination for John Perrin.
Any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Vice president.
I make a motion for John Purdy.
I second it.
Other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from December 4th?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 4th.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Angela, was this supposed to be 12/18? Okay. Motion to approve the minutes from December 18th.
Motion.
Motion by Dennis.
Second.
Second by John Purdy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Do we have a motion to approve and ratify the fund report and docket from 12/31?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by John Purdy.
Second.
Second by John Shalotsky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. And the docket for January 8th.
I'll make a motion.
Dennis?
I'll second.
Dr. Shalotsky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Wow. Okay, first order of business is insurance presentations. Matt, I'll let you introduce.
Yeah, we have 3 different brokerage firms here today to discuss insurance, kind of their companies and what they have to offer. We have Mayfield, Gibson, and Epic are here. They all have representation. I think they're just really going to talk kind of about, what, like I said, what they have to offer to the town and our insurance needs and things like that. I don't know if there's any specific order you guys will hear them in or not, but I figured just go how I said it. We'll do Mayfield, Gibson, and Epic if that's okay with you.
Okay, unless you want to let them arm wrestle. And then
I was thinking ladies first.
There you go.
Well, I don't know if Matt gave these to you. I have provided packets with our quotes, but I'll give those to you so each of you have kind of your own. You can do homework.
thank you.
Lee, I'll give you one.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't realize that was
failed.
Good.
No test.
Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Kim Meredith, and I am a licensed property and casualty insurance agent. I've been doing this for about 36 years. Now look at that photo on the report there, or the paper there. My hair's changed a little bit. I'm the aging assistant.
That's my excuse.
But I'm with the Mayfield Insurance Agency in Mooresville, Indiana. I've been there 4 years, but I was with the Avery Insurance Agency for 18 years, and I was with Morgan Insurance Group for 14 years, so I've been in insurance a lot of years. So I've worked with Lee. We do municipalities, and we have worked together on some others that I insure that are municipalities. And in my 36 years, I've worked a lot on schools, towns, cities, so I've got a niche for that, and we do a good job. We've got a great team at Mayfield Insurance, and you've got a great guy here with Matt. He's been so good about getting us the information that we need to quote things, and he's really helpful. So kudos to Matt. He's good. The owner of the agency is with me, Dean Mayfield, he's owned the agency, Mayfield Insurance, I'll give him a minute to speak here in just a second, but what we provided you is a quote with Tokyo Marine, which is a, company that does a lot of municipalities, that's where I put a lot of things in the last few years. The insurance companies are rated under what's called AM's Best, if you're familiar with that. It's kind of like a rating of that company based on their financial stability, their claim service, their overall customer service. And Tokyo Marine is rated A++. So that's hardly heard of anymore. You hear a lot of A's, A++, but they are still A++. They offer a lot of claim help with prevention, claim prevention. They can come on site and give you pointers on things you can do with your departments that will kind of do away with claim frequency. I know you've had some claim history in the past. Our quote will, no company, I mean, if you walk in and you want to get an insurance quote for your home or your auto, you can pretty much go to any insurance agency around. If you get into municipalities, there's not as many companies that you can go to, that's their niche market. Tokyo Marine is, and they kind of set the bar on what they do, but I know you guys are in a little different situation. I think your main insurance comes up in July of each year, and then your, if I'm not wrong, your workers' compensation comes up in April. So you got a little bit different dates there. A lot of folks think once they pay the premium, they gotta stay with that company for a year, and that's not the case. If you find a better rate, and you can do better for your taxpayers, then you can do that at any time. And so your situation's a little different, that you're gonna have the work comp come up first, and then the rest of it, but you can move it at any time. Our quote, I mean, I did a little research and looked back to see what I think your renewals were in July, and I think we can save you like $20,000 alone on just the taxes and cyber, and so we can really help you out. And you know, that's, I sit where you sit. I'm actually the president of the Morgan County Council, so I was the first woman named as a council member in Morgan, or council president in Morgan County 2 years ago, or four years ago. Yeah, it goes fast.
Time flies.
So I'm just starting my third term on the Morgan County Council. So I know it's good when you can take a look at those things and kind of tout that you've saved the taxpayers' money. And we've got a great team that works together. I know, I think Matt has talked a lot with Emily in our office, and she's very helpful. So we've got a great team, and we'd like to be able to put that team to work for you guys. And I welcome any questions, any changes, or any questions you might have, or questions on the coverage and things. We didn't get a lot of time to delve into a lot of things, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. Under your excess liability, umbrella policy, yours currently is set up as just a one umbrella policy. And Tokyo Marine does it a little different. We call it a silo coverage. They have like an umbrella per line of business, so you're not limited to that one umbrella policy. You've kind of got an umbrella per line of business, so it gives you a lot more coverage than what you currently have. Do you want to add anything?
I would just say, you know, the agency's been in Mooresville for 104 years. I've been the owner since 1989. I've done this is my 43rd year. So, the A++ rating that she talked about, the last I knew there was 25 companies that had that, and one of them lost Ottawa, which is also the A++ rating. It is very hard to get that. So there's probably 24 in the country that have that. So it just says they're financially stable, they have the assets to pay the money, which is the most important thing. One thing that Ken didn't mention that we talked about, when we looked at none of the quotes you're going to get are going to be exactly the same, because one will have a limit of 50,000 and one will have a limit of 75,000. So, one thing that was different in ours, and we pointed it out to Matt and John, was the deductibles on the vehicles. Ours is a little higher. It's $1,000 more per vehicle. We looked at your claims history over the last 2 years, that within $2,000 from there on you would pay. You've had some other claims in the recent history where the deductible on those were $15,000 per claim. Our deductible is $10,000. So
Where you needed it.
yeah, we would have saved you $5,000 on 2 claims, and you would have got $2,000 more on 2 claims. So, and really, the deductible on the autos is not that much for what we see in commercial clients anymore. But we would love an opportunity. We're hoping that you're going to give some directions to, are you going to wait now till the renewal, or are you going to start with the work comp date? So we have some direction.
Well, and I want to mention that we had given you some numbers numbers, and then they kind of give a date that that's good till, and then we had went back and asked them to give us an extension on that date, and we got a little extension there, so we would need another extension. We just need some direction if you're thinking further out or if you're thinking now, so
Yeah.
that's the only thing.
It might not change at all.
Right.
It didn't change the first time, but it was,
Gotta look for it.
it was 1/1, and I don't know if they changed, but they said, well, we need to know, and I said, I don't know what they're gonna do at the meeting, so let's not ask for the extension now. If we need it, we'll call them. My guess is it probably wouldn't change that, so I think that's what we should probably do.
Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, no questions. I know you've been involved with this.
I don't think I have anything at the moment. You know, the nuts and bolts, and maybe Matt knows some of this already or needs to put it together, but the nuts and bolts of how the claim or the quotes match up and the coverages and the price. I mean,
And that packet will have that in it too, so when you have more time.
right, and I see it. I
I hate
mean,
to go to
more
a council meeting and have.
more the way the
that
three,
meeting.
yeah, more the way the three match up, but a $20,000 savings that's a nice
And I
one.
think we pointed out, well, we were not as good, like, the deductibles on the aisle, we were higher.
Yeah, there's a spreadsheet
And
in
there
there.
was some minor internal limits where, like I said,
Yeah.
we're 75, we're 50, or we're 75, and we're 50. You know.
And so that's this document. So you've got expiring limits. That would be what we have now.
That and-
Quote limits would be yours, and then notes. Okay, good. Thank you.
I'm trying to make it,
Simple. It needs to be simple for me, that's for sure.
Well,
Okay.
Again, appreciate you having us here and hope we can do something.
Sure.
Dennis, any questions?
No, not at this time.
John?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who do you have next?
Affirmative from Gibson, I don't know which one. Douglas. Okay.
Is that your fine, Matt?
That's fine, yeah, sure.
Council, thanks for having us tonight. Again, I'm David Wheatley. This is my business partner, John Slusser. We're with Gibson Insurance. I want to ask you, do we have any golfers up here? Any gentlemen play golf?
Used to.
Yeah, a little bit.
I've played.
Okay, now this, have you ever played golf with a caddy?
No.
No, me either. They don't have caddies in the legends. But we all know whether you play golf or not, what a caddy does, right? You know the job of the caddy. It's really to put his golfer in the very best position to win, right? To do everything in his power so that his golfer can perform at the highest level. And what's that look like? It means showing up early. It means studying the course. It means knowing, forecasting what's ahead. It means collecting data on the conditions. It means knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the golfer. It means limiting surprises, right? So that there isn't anything that, oh, we didn't know that, you know, it did this or that down there, right? It means being a trusted advisor. It means being a consultant. It means carrying the right tools, right? Having access to all the right tools, knowing when to use what tool at the right time. That's what a great caddy looks like, right? How do you measure the success of a caddy? I would say the only metric you really have is how good is the golfer doing. You look at the performance of the golfer to assess how the caddies do. Well, we're here tonight because we met with Matt and Angela over a month ago, and as y'all have put this on the agenda to figure out what are we doing with our property and casualty insurance, it's been a little turbulent, what can we do? The first question John and I want to answer is, what's the point of an insurance broker? Like, what is their function, what is their role? So in kind of the same way, if I could boil it down to one thing, the insurance broker, the whole design, we're hired so that we can put our clients in the very best position to win. So what does that look like? It means all the preparation. It means all the behind the scenes stuff, the collecting data, the forecasting the market, understanding the landscape of what's happening in property and casualty. It means understanding the client's strengths and weaknesses at an intimate level. It means having access to, again, all the tools, knowing which tool to use at the right time. And it really means being that trusted advisor and that consultant that you can count on. Who's the star of the show? It's not us, it's the client. But we're there to present everything, to do all the hard work and say, hey, here's what we found. What do you all think? What is the ultimate decision that you want to do? And how do you measure the success of an insurance broker? By the success of the client, by their insurance program. So that's what we believe. John and I are here tonight, and we're going to try to, in 10 minutes or less, it's a tall order, but to kind of introduce why Gibson's a little different, why our process is different, and why it's tailor-made for municipalities, why we have a book of municipalities, why they continue to choose us.
Appreciate that, David. I'm John. Nice to meet you guys, and thanks for having us here. A couple things that stand out to us is This is going to look a little different. We don't have a quote for you, and frankly, you guys aren't ready for a quote just yet from our meeting with Matt and Angela. We're not there. We're here to talk about the process, so that way you're not doing this meeting 6 months from now, another 6 months from now, another 6 months from now. Our whole entire process is focused on predictability, longevity, and stability, and that's what we're going to talk about. Not to beat up Mayfield, not to beat up Epic, or to talk about how we're the superior broker. It's really just to share our process and the way we operate, and perhaps at the end that resonates, or perhaps it doesn't, and that's okay too. So I'm going to break that down just a little bit and share what our ideas are going forward. So the first thing that we focus on is we want to get into our process, which is called Sightline. And Sightline is a process that has 3 components: an assessment, a unique starting point that's yours, and then a proactive plan that lays out what we're going to accomplish over the next 3 to 4 months. Beginning with the assessment, we've already had that with Matt and Angela. And what was incredibly obvious and relevant to these guys was that they don't have a process. They found themselves in the 11th hour presenting to you guys the best opportunity that they had without having any diligence done prior to that. And it's frankly not the highest and best use of their time to be looking at insurance right before their renewal. Our process is a little different. We actually didn't come with a quote here today because moving your policy to a 1-1 or to a 2-1 or to a 3-1 doesn't make any sense. I think keeping your policy at a 7-1 to provide the appropriate process and to lift every leaf and every rock to understand what the true value is, to make sure that their time is best utilized, and that when they come here, you guys have all the pieces of the puzzle together. That makes the most sense. So Sightline in our assessment had uncovered that. We had an hour-and-a-half long storytelling session about how they're literally walking the park to look at pieces of equipment and looking at trucks and that kind of stuff at renewal. And our process is far ahead of that. And that leads us to what you're seeing in front of you, which it ultimately culminates into your unique starting point. It's a tailored and customized approach to you guys. And having done the assessment, we've already provided the areas in which we would start. The first is we would start with a Sightline renewal process. The Sightline renewal process is that we want to make sure that we start with understanding what's important to y'all. And then from there, we're going to look at insurance structure and coverage gaps. They had mentioned some deductibles, limits, Tokyo Marine, etc. There are some carriers that specialize in municipalities that we work with on a consistent basis. And then there's some carriers that we can split up the program, and maybe a monoline work comp product makes the most sense. Maybe a monoline auto makes the most sense. And these are the things that we work on together. And then lastly, it's going to culminate into marketplace representation. Now, this is where I get to be direct and perhaps challenge the folks in the room, and that is, you guys have been in this stance before. And frankly, got to the point where the renewal just wasn't in your town's benefit. So we said, hey, let's pause, carry it out 6 months, and then we're going to reevaluate. One thing that we like to focus on is to take the policy and to do that on the back end after we've already focused on the marketplace representation to ensure that you're in the most competitive process possible. And the way we do that is for you not to be in the marketplace every 6 months or every 12 months to see quotes. And I think Mayfield and Epic would probably agree with me that what's most relevant is to pick a broker and have that broker represent the market. That tends to make the most sense. I'm seeing the heads nod of our competitors. Pick the broker, have that individual represent the marketplace to where they are the incumbent. They are your representative. They're the ones that are representing the market for you to have the best option possible. And as a result, then you'll walk away with a policy that makes sense, that's relevant, and is focused on longevity and stability. And I think, frankly, as a fiduciary of your town and the people that call this place home, that is the responsibility of everybody in this room, and that's what we talk about with Matt and Angela. The highest and best use of their time are to take care of your residents. The highest and best use of our time is to put together this process and make sure that the output is in your benefit. And that's where we get to the proactive plan. So if you turn the page, you'll see a list that says proactive plan. And frankly, our process requires a little bit of mutual accountability. We have laid out a timeline that begins in March. It's going to talk about how we're going to start the process of gathering some renewal material, how we're going to run through the entire program, how we're going to put together some marketplace representation, how the submissions are going to look, and eventually it's going to culminate with a June 1st proposal with y'all. The reason why June 1st and not July 1st is because Matt and Angela are tasked with coming in here at a set time, unless a special order is called, and being able to present to you guys, and you need time to make a decision and perhaps ask you questions. So we make sure that we're operating a municipality's renewal date a month ahead of their actual renewal date. Another reason why I think it makes sense to keep the 7-1, and I appreciate Matt putting on his insurance hat. I tuned into the December 4th town council meeting that you guys had, and got to listen to my buddy over here talk about insurance, which he did a great job. But to help him out and to clean that up a little bit, yes, he's right. Insurance companies buy insurance. One benefit of a municipality is to not have a 1/1 or a 2/1 effective date. The reason why is the following. You have to think about the carriers that you just got presented to, the travelers that you already had, the Tokyo Marine that's in front of you. They are not Indiana-based carriers. They are national carriers. They're the same carriers that are paying claims in Florida for Milton and Helene. They're the same carriers that are now paying claims out in California for wildfires, and they're the same carriers that have moratoriums in Florida along the coast. These are the same carriers that are looking at your policy and reviewing their financials to determine if your policy is profitable. And the way we operate is I want to make sure that you guys understand the way insurance actually works to create that longevity. And that is that insurance carriers want to write policies for insurers that they can provide profitability on. And that looks like a combined ratio of 60 to 70%, which takes the premium you pay divided by your losses. And that's the ratio. So one thing that we like to do is get to a point where carriers are through their 1/1. The reason why, and to Matt's point, insurance companies buy insurance. That reinsurance treaty is happening on 1/1 and it's happening on 4/1. And they're going to figure out what their insurance rates are going to be based off the catastrophic claims, $24 billion in 2024, to determine what they need to charge their insurers. So yeah, you might save $20,000 today, but is that $20,000 there tomorrow? Is it $20,000 there the next year? We don't know. So what we like to do is to push that effective date until after they've gotten their reinsurance rates, until they have released all their financials, Tokyo Marine Travelers being two carriers that they are responsible for releasing financials for all their shareholders, and then be in a position where they know how they can perform then in 2025. So we think that the 7/1 date makes the most sense. Run through the process, get into a position where Angela and Matt aren't drowning and that they are in a participatory perspective of insurance, that you're not just looking at a quote, because frankly, if we walked in here and provided a quote, it's going to be the exact same experience that you guys have right now, which is just a quote. You guys don't have a process. We can help with the process. And that's really what we're preaching. Start the process in March, select a broker, have the effective date be 7/1, and then perform all the diligence. And perhaps that's with Gibson, perhaps it's Mayfield, Epic, someone else, and that's okay. But until there is an appropriate process to get to that point, we're going to keep quoting.
Yeah, and my last thought really, and kind of at the risk of being the analogy to death, some of the best player caddy combos in history were some that already had a relationship. Whether it was family or family friends or maybe college roommates, some of the legendary combos. I do not think it is a wise decision for the council, for the residents of New Whiteland, to pick a broker because it's like, oh, that guy's local. I don't think that's the wisest choice. I think it is effective, but I don't think it's the most important. I think the most important are some of the things that John outlined here. But I want to tell you this about Gibson, and again, we tried to answer the question, what would it be like if you worked with us? We are a national broker. We have offices in different states. We're all over the country, but I'm right here. And you get a team if you get Gibson, but I'd be your guy. And I live in Johnson County, and I'm a Leadership Johnson County graduate, which has just found its new home here in New Whiteland on Moreland Drive. I've known Angela for 5 years. Assistant Chief David Brooks is a family friend of mine. I'm actually doing his daughter's wedding in October. So I'm not going anywhere. I am local, and I think, those taken together we have all the tools, resources, carrier access, the sophistication you would want from a national broker, but you also got a local presence. So I appreciate the consideration and the invitation tonight.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for us, yes?
No, appreciate the explanation.
Yeah, one question I have, if you don't mind, you had mentioned talking about national carriers. So are you talking about it's gonna be more of an Indiana carrier, or?
The answer to that could be perhaps, and the reason being is a national carrier might make the most sense. We represent several municipalities right here in the state of Indiana. Some are with some regional relationships, some are with some national relationships.
Tomorrow we have our strategy meeting with Whiteland, Carmen Young. They're our clients. Their insurance program looked kind of similar to what we saw when we opened y'all's policies and discovered your program. And we cleaned it all up, and our renewal program follows a similar cycle as what you've seen on your proactive plan. Again, those are tailored for each municipality separately, but yeah, right now Whiteland uses travelers. So
yeah, but some of our consideration would involve some nice regional carriers, simply because your footprint's right here. Sometimes it makes sense to use a national carrier if you have multiple locations and geographies outside of Indiana. But for us, we have some regional play. Some carriers like Westfield Insurance that are out of Westfield Center, Ohio, or Central Insurance out of Vanward, Ohio. These are two carriers that we've placed municipalities with that we could tap into as well, that we've already spoken with. So there are some regional plays, and then there's some national plays too.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Matt,
You all know John, he's with Epic, and he will be giving his presentation.
thank you.
The most important piece are just the top 3 or 4 pages there. The rest of it is information that I brought back in June 19th. And why are we here? I mean, he's spot on some things. I mean, I'll all agree with Gibson. You need to pick a broker. But don't quote it. It's not going to do you any good. It's not the right way to do it, in my opinion. June 19th, I was back here. I gave you I included with you there the spreadsheet, the breakdown of who we quoted, where we went to. And it was last minute. I was brought into, if you'll go to the second page of the service timeline. And if you'll remember, in June 19th, I stood here and I told you about, hey, we need to develop a game plan. We need to have a plan of what we're going to do and put it together. I brought that again to you here tonight to show you. Again, you need to have those quotes 30 days in advance. But on April 24th, I met with you for the first time. Epic had it. We had a gentleman retired, was in some health conditions. Timing was what it was, right? And I was brought into that. We got a non-renewal from EMC that same day. Then we, like we mentioned, on May 13th, I toured the town's facility just to make sure that we understood. And then we came in June 19th, and I get it. That was a rate increase, big change, right? But 45% rate increase is what it was, but it was a 40% increase in building values. And that was due to us, looking at the program, put it together. What I do, I rep 21 municipalities throughout the state. I rep 10 schools, 5 libraries. I don't say that to gloat numbers, but I live in the public entity space. That's what we do. I have a team. That's all we do, public entity space. Your day-to-day interaction is with Jackie Wallace. Melissa's the one that talks to her on a regular basis, let's just say. And from a service standpoint, I know that relationship is good. We have to do better. We will do. I mean, I've taken over from that program, and like you said, in that time frame there, if you go to the next page there, it tells a little bit about our service team. But we'll put together a timeline, and our goal is to start in February. And we go through, we do all the renewal application process. We go through, gather the information, get it out to the markets. We had in May 1st, we did Xywave training here. We've done some OSHA, loss control was in January, and then we have another loss control meeting, another meeting coming up here in January to go through the processes there, with our current carriers to go through also to implement that plan to go forward, to understand what it is that you need from a loss perspective, the help that you need, good, bad, or indifferent, right? I mean, you go through and analyze the situation, but develop that plan so that when we have it in front of you, we have to have the numbers to you. You know, I say June 1st, I looked at June 1st is Sunday, it has to be June 2nd, but you have to have it a month in advance. And that is what our team is doing and working to do now. We, like I said, toured the facilities, and the values were what they were. They were a little undervalued. EMC has written the account for a long time, and with a new team approach from within on what we do, we took a hard look at it and increased those values. We brought to you in the information that you have there. We had 10 carriers. That email that you see right there, that is what was, and that kind of summarizes a little bit of what went on in June 9th. We had 10 carriers. We brought to you 4 to the table that night. We made a decision to go with Travelers. Trident was a little bit less money, but they had a wind and hail deductible, right? A 1%, where we had a flat deductible with Travelers. You know, Continental Western gave us a quote. They had some issues in and around FA coverage and section molestation coverage. And so that spreadsheet that we've given to you there is what you need to have to be able to analyze the coverage and get it in a timely manner to go through to implement those. Count out local, I get that. I mean, you know, we do have an office in Franklin. We are as well a national broker. You know, that is what it is. It's all only as good as the people that are out beating the streets. So again, we've handled the account for a while. New strategy. What questions do you have? I've got more I can talk about, but what questions do you have?
Questions?
It was a tough renewal last year. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, I said that here. I mean, it stinks. I mean, that would have been bad information 60 days in advance. You know, to be honest with you. And so, timeliness of us getting started last year was, you know, I don't pass the buck. It was on us, right? We made a change. The team designed some of that. Jim's health condition, there was nothing we could do about that. And, good news is Jim's good. That's the most important part. Jim's a good man. So, just want to appreciate the opportunity to work through it. Like I said, this is a world that we live in. And kudos to what everybody else said. These guys are fantastic, right? And they took me on a tour, answered my questions, and put up with my dumminess, right, for a number of while. But I'm glad you didn't know me from anybody from June. I think service has been good since then. You know, we've, like I said, done the training that needs done, continuing to work on that. Team dedicated solely to municipalities. That's all that group does. Love to have your business.
Other questions? No. Okay. Thanks, John. Since John mentioned it, I'd like to ask both of you guys, because this has been something that's been important to these guys. Any program that we come up with, the training that they've been able to get has been invaluable. So is that something that going forward, regardless of who, because I don't want to say, well, you know, this one came up with a great price, but then we lose the benefit of what we've been able to do with the guys.
Yeah, our Tokyo Marine offers several different options.
Okay.
On-site training, loss prevention. They even have, under their HR program, they have a program to teach or help with onboarding.
Okay.
Of new employees and things. Yeah, so yes, you would have that.
Okay.
Well, I know that, Matt, was one of your primary concerns when we talked about switching.
Yes.
Have you explored that with Mayfield at all? I mean, do you have an opinion on?
We've had some brief conversations and things like that. It was more or less, you know, didn't really dig into the actual programs that they offer, but just making sure that they have, that's what they call loss prevention
Yes.
program, I suppose, and just making sure they had
You're
something
gonna find most
along
of
those
your
lines.
carriers have that. They want to partner with you to keep the losses down, so they're gonna offer those programs.
So you feel like based on what you know, that would probably be adequate, or is that?
It sounds like from everybody that we've talked to, I think they have a similar program and things like that.
Okay.
So, And like I said, that was a huge thing on our end, just because I know, the fire department, the police department, I don't know, it just seems like they get, they have training opportunities all over the place. It seems like you guys probably work your butts off to find them, but it just seems like for us, it's hard to find that type of stuff to get there, so.
And it is helpful, I mean, from my council's perspective, I know that Morgan County, we've taken advantage of a lot of those within our groups. Our jail, we have a jail that they've gone through the loss prevention, and it's quite honestly saved our butts on some claims, so yeah, it is helpful.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that loss prevention, when you guys track that also helps with our rates moving
Yes.
forward and things like that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and with respect to what has already been shared, I think one key delineation between what was mentioned and one thing that we do is we completely understand that if the carrier is the one responsible for loss prevention, risk management services, OSHA training, you name it, the second that carrier isn't saving you the dollar or cents or found a nasty claim and they want to get off of it, you're starting the entire thing over with another carrier. And again, the heads are shaking because that's just the way it works. One thing that we do that's a little different is we have internal risk management services. So we partner with the carrier, but we actually are the ones internally that carry out the OSHA training, carry out the videos, carry out all the loss prevention services, carry out the claims consulting, mod calculations to ensure that workers' compensation is in a great spot, DART programs, MVR checks, all the stuff that you would get in loss prevention. We do that in-house, and that's a benefit that we provide to all of our clients. So it makes sense to be with Travelers and then Tokyo Marine and then Philly and you name it. That never changes. And to Matt's previous point, as a result of us establishing that up front, going back to Epic, I'm sure Mayfield agrees, in selecting a broker, that's one of the most important parts. Right now, they went out and got a quote, and I would have to imagine they got a quote with zero history of what risk management services looks like internal. He has provided risk management services, I would imagine. You just mentioned that, right? So that quote's probably going to look more of a benefit than without. And I think that's the benefit of the internal risk management services versus leveraging a carrier.
Okay.
The only
Thank you.
thing I would add is ours is handled internally as well from our standpoint. We use the OSHA training that's done by our own people. Much like them, we rely on the carriers some, but we do a lot of our own and provide risk management platforms that are from Epic. I say giving the town nothing to it. It's included.
Yeah.
Nothing free.
Okay.
It's included, but it's an Epic program that you're getting to. So.
Great, thank you. Appreciate all of you being here this evening. If you want to stay, you're welcome to. I don't think this is something we're going to make a decision tonight because it's a ton of information. If you want to stay and be bored to tears, it's entirely up to you. You've been involved, so you know. If depending on the weather, I'm sure you guys have other places you'd rather be, so please feel free to stay or leave, whatever you want to do. So, but thank you all for being here.
Next week, so I'm gonna leave.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate
it.
I'll be in contact with whoever.
Yeah, thank you.
So.
Yes,
Appreciate it, John.
Angela, good to see you, Matt. Thank you.
Nice
to meet you.
See you, Kim.
We are gonna jump a little bit because I think yours is gonna maybe take a little bit, and we've got 3 firefighters here that probably have other things they need to do. So we're gonna jump down to new business real quick because I know Dave wants to introduce our new fire marshal and he's got a quick update. So if you want.
This is Kerry O'Haver. He's been hired on as our fire marshal. Kerry comes to us, he's got roughly 40 years in the fire service. And a long resume of certifications to go with that. So he's bringing a lot of knowledge into the department as well, which will be beneficial. And he's getting started, trying to figure out where we're at and making a plan to move forward. So once he gets settled in a little bit, I'm going to get him set up with Bob so they can work together as needed. And he already knows Jason from Whiteland, the fire marshal over there.
Good.
So the plan is to have them collaborate going forward as well. So that'll be a benefit to keeping that relationship going.
Very good.
Just want you guys to meet him and let you know we're making progress.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. It's something we've needed for a while. So
Appreciate the opportunity. Great.
I'd like to move him
Little background,
Huh?
little background,
What do you mean, a little background?
little background on him.
Didn't Dave just tell you? Okay, go
Well,
ahead.
I
If you
mean,
wanna,
like-
Full background?
Like some of the places you've served.
Okay, so my big start in the fire service was Bethlehem Steel back about 1987 as a firefighter paramedic. Actually, I got my paramedic cert in 1985, kind of one of the dinosaurs that's still out there yet. Got my fire science degree with Ivy Tech in Gary, Indiana. That's quite an experience from back then. My first full-time career gig was with the city of South Bend Fire Department. I served there for 13 years. I left as a captain in the training division. I relocated down south after a deployment in the military. I recently, it's about 2017, I retired completely as a full-time firefighter out of pension with Brownsburg Fire Territory, where I served as an engine lieutenant and division chief of training as well. I've taught paramedic school over at St. Vincent's while that program was still in play. I went back to the streets over at the city of Lawrence as what they call an EMS duty officer. So I was in charge of the 3 ambulances that were running pretty much nonstop, 24 hours a day. Recently, I was the division chief of emergency medical services with Town of Zionsville Fire Department. I have a bachelor's degree in public safety management. I'm also the first out-of-state fire officer to successfully complete the Ohio Fire Executive Program at the Ohio State University. And then I'm working at some point to finish my master's degree in something. And I've cleared 24 years in the U.S. Army, both active reserve and National Guard. There's 2 deployments under my belt. Everything from graduated the U.S. Army Drill Sergeant School at Fort Knox, 1987, Class 87-3. Distinguished honor grad from the U.S. Army Flight Medic School. I'm also a graduate of the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School for Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations. Served as a team sergeant in both those respects in different units.
wow,
It's impressive.
well, thank you for
That's
your
perfect.
service.
That's exactly what I wanted.
So can you do the psychological stuff?
Don't look him in the eye.
Welcome.
Thank you. very
Glad to
much.
have you here. And did you have a 24 update as well, or?
Yeah, before we do that,
So just one confirmation, back when we did the budget hearings and all that type of stuff, that they had originally asked for a vehicle for the fire marshal because, they didn't have it, all that type of stuff. You guys had talked about taking it out of the budget. In lieu of that, we offered out one of our trucks that's actually sitting out in the lot there right now to them. Wanted to see if that's the direction you all were still interested in going, because if that is the case, we were gonna be needing the DPW is gonna be needing to look for another truck. So just wanted to make sure before we turned it over, and we're wound up short of truck.
Okay. I don't know what is involved with fire marshal duties. The vehicle that they have to use at this point, will that be adequate for whatever gear or anything that might be necessary?
we believe it will be, and we've
Okay.
talked about it. We may have to, buy some sort of a topper or something like that. But
Okay.
main thing is to be able to haul some basic equipment for inspections, maybe have the open ladder in there, that kind of thing, so.
Okay. So we can make do with this and then look down the road if we need to
Yeah.
get something else. Okay. Or is that, I know we did talk about that. Is that the direction?
My recollection was we're gonna do that, but not have to buy a vehicle. Is that what we discussed, or?
No, so I think what it was is because their stuff comes out of general fund, you guys were trying to find places to cut general fund money. In the utilities budget, I had budgeted 50,000 for a vehicle already. We were gonna replace, our Dodge 1500, which was the oldest, like 2000, 9, something like that. And we were gonna use it as a trade-in when we bought the new vehicle. The thought process was, so that you guys could cut it out of the general fund budget, we would basically give one of our better trucks to them, and then we just basically wouldn't have a trade-in. You know, we would just use what was budgeted out of the utility budget to make that purchase. That's what it was.
I think, well, if we're gonna transfer a vehicle, we probably ought to make it official and have a motion to do it that way. Because we did budget for the new one, but I think with transferring in between,
Department.
probably ought to at least be on the record.
And what's that do to you guys short term, knowing you're not gonna have a new truck next week?
We'll be all right. We'll just move some things around as far as we got some of the, like one of our 550s or our 450, you know, that is normally set up for, you know, plow, things like that. We can always move stuff around. And to be honest, even if I have to drive a personal vehicle into work, I don't, it doesn't matter to me there, so.
Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion to transfer the, which
Vehicle
vehicle?
from,
From,
It's 2019 Chevy 1500 extended cab is what it is.
to the
Okay.
fire department.
to the fire department.
I'll second that.
John Shalotski made motion, John Purdy second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Thank you.
Right details.
Did you have anything else, Dave?
Yeah, we're gonna share some numbers with you, just to kind of let you know how the year ended for us.
So in '23, we finished the year roughly around 625 runs. In '24, we finished the year with 749 runs for EMS and fire, everything that's total calls of service. Just our EMS runs was 531 runs. And then all the other calls for service, fire runs, mutual aid runs, good intents, was 218. With the nursing home that just opened June 26th, we did 74 runs since June 26th there. In the south building, the apartment building, we did 9 from August 9th. The nursing home is about 80% capacity. And the south building, the apartment building is at like 35 to 40% capacity. So those are gonna massively increase.
So what it sounds like, you guys need a full-time fire department.
That would be nice.
I want to ask a question about that because I know it's almost a daily basis that we're getting calls over to the retirement center. Is there any way to recoup any of that? Because if you look at the amount of the calls, what are the majority? Lift assist.
There are EMS runs and
Yeah.
assist, and you can't charge for those.
The only thing we can charge for right now is nuisance alarms.
Fire alarm.
So
Is what? I'm sorry.
nuisance alarm, so they have repeated false alarm calls.
Okay.
We have an ordinance in place to charge for that currently.
Okay. But is that an issue?
No, it's not.
Okay.
At this point. The problem that we're faced with right now with the lot of lift assists and so forth, their policy is their employees are not allowed to move the patient unless their nurse examines them first. They currently only have 1 nurse.
Wow.
They're short, I think, well, they're supposed to work 8-hour shifts, so they're short 2 nurses right now.
Wow.
So that's the problem we're running into is, they can't pick the patients up because they don't have the nurse available to check the patient out.
So they call.
So their policy is to call 911 instead.
My next question, and I'll let you go on to your presentation. I know we've only just started with the new scheduling as far as the paid standby and everything. For what you're seeing so far, is that benefiting? Is it helping with having availability of your personnel? I know it's only been a few days.
Yeah, it's, I'd say looking ahead at the schedule, I think it's gonna help, based on what we already have filled in. But yeah, it's kind of a really
Okay,
very good idea.
okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's all.
No, that's all we have for now.
Oh, okay.
So to go back to all those lift assists, so we're essentially defraying expenses for them at our expense. When you talk about the nuisance alarms and we've got an ordinance, can there be an ordinance for that sort of run?
Yeah, I don't know that I know that answer.
Because, you know, you guys put me on the I Am Responding app, and I see it's a couple times a day that you guys are going over there, it seems like.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of them are lift assists. And, you know, to hear you, I guess I assumed that was something they couldn't do, but to hear you say, well, we're doing their work at our expense, sure would be nice if we start charging a run charge.
It's no different than us going to the same house 19 times a year for lifting.
You're
for the
right.
exact same thing.
Except they're
You're
not
right,
being
but it's a
paid.
little bit different is they're a for-profit business.
Right.
Where, you know, it may just be an elderly person in a home. I do see that as different.
Can we, not to throw any more on your plate, sir, over there, is that something we can research? Because
Yeah,
I get
I'm
what
making
you're
myself a
saying.
note right now.
I get
So
what
we
you're
will.
saying about if it's a resident.
Yeah, I think it's a
There-
lot different too.
But if it's what John said, a for-profit business, I mean, I know if we had an ambulance and you were sending the ambulance over, yes, that's always something that's been able to be charged for, at least,
If they transport.
right, if they transport. But it would seem to me, I think going to your point, that if they're a for-profit, there should be something there that, you know, basically we're paying for their nurse, honestly,
Yeah.
their nurses they don't have.
We're relieving their need for
Yeah.
2 more nurses.
What benefit to them is them finding somebody to hire when they can just.
Exactly.
Basically
Right.
free to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's research
Yeah,
that,
we will.
and if there's something we can, there may be something and there may not, but at least it's worth checking.
Yeah, we ought to know.
Well, if nothing else, just to disincentivize them using it, not so much to, I get it, you guys understand, it's not so much that we would be collecting money as they would be incentivized
To hire somebody,
To handle it.
yeah,
To handle
which
it.
as a level of service that ought to be provided there, they ought to have that person there anyway,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Dave, you have anything else?
I think Carrie's gonna look into that a little bit too.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, and like we told those guys, you're more than welcome to stay if you want to, but you have lives too, so, you know, if you don't wanna stay, you.
They've got chili at the station.
Oh.
So they were at the fire station and after the meeting, right?
So you didn't invite me to go to the station after the meeting?
Before you guys leave, I've been here, I know you've been over here, you've been here over 30 years, you've been over here 30 years. How long have you lived here?
27?
Okay. As long as I've been here, as long as they've been here, that Santa parade is one of the coolest things that's ever been done. It may not seem like a big deal, but it is absolutely awesome. But I do want to know why you came by my house twice. That was.
There's a couple spots in town where you have to circle around.
Uh-huh.
Just because of the way the roads are laid out.
No,
Try to hit
you
it.
should just say because you're special.
See, he took you serious.
I don't wanna make them jealous.
Yeah, he only came by my house once.
But no, thank you guys. I think it means a lot, and it's just one of the neat things that you guys have done forever and ever. And you know, as long as I'm around here, I hope you keep doing it. It was just really cool because it was cold that night, and thank you for doing that. It was just really neat.
I appreciate it. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
But, you know, we enjoy it too.
Yeah.
I haven't had a little kid in my house for many, many years, and I still ran out the front door, took a picture, and drove by.
Me
Well,
too.
You know, the ratio of kids to adults is probably almost even.
Uh-huh.
There's more, you know, so many of the adults are just as excited as the kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It is cool. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna go back to old business now and let Matt talk about the rate study.
So, I don't know how much to talk, I know that what the plan is, it's gotta be done twice, right?
Well-
And the consultant's gonna be at the February meeting to really answer any specific
Yeah,
questions.
so the presentation of the rate study by Bob Reynolds, our consultant, will be at the February 5th meeting because we needed to introduce the ordinance, and I have it tonight, and all, for the only purpose of you all getting it and it being introduced. I have notices ready to be sent to the paper of a public hearing to be held on February 5th. Notices to our outside customers will be mailed in the morning because we have to send notices by mail to those who don't live in the annexed territory. And Bob Reynolds is scheduled to be here. So I don't know that you can really give it meaningful consideration, or that you even should, until he's here to present it. And then he'll be here for you to ask questions of, and for any members of the public to do that as well. And if history's any indication, no one will come. But we might be surprised this time. But I'd rather doubt it.
Yeah, I think this time, because it says rate increase, there may be people here because they're reading the stories in Greenwood that's going up a ridiculous amount of money. And looking what this one is, I think that's going to be easily explainable.
I do too.
It's less than $1
And I was
a
gonna
month.
say, I think if you guys remember, I think it's now been 5 years, if not 6 years in general, I can't remember, when the last sanitary rate increase.
And that's not too long. We've been pretty responsible about keeping up with it, and it's not a 40% rate increase or some such thing, and it's a percentage of a relatively small number, so in dollars and cents it doesn't turn out to be so much. What's more compelling, I think, right, and I'm talking over you,
I know exactly.
you can try to shut me up, but it won't work, is we want to get this sewer availability fee increase in place before we start adding more homes to the community. And so that's what really drove it's being done now. It was kind of like, while we're at it, let's have a look-see at the recurring fees. And
because we're basically going from, I think we're at either 11 or 1200 on our availability fees, and
2430.
They're recommended to go to $2,430. And to explain what availability fee is, it's basically each home, when they make a connection, are paying that for availability to our sewer system. So with this new subdivision, we're basically gonna double what we would be. So.
And are we not way below most everybody else right now at the 1100?
I'll tell you, even at this 2,430, it's actually still a little bit low, but there's a process of how they do it. He'll be able to explain it, but they go through and.
He will, and I think because our plant is older and we haven't expanded it any time in the recent past, it is a calculation of historic cost investment in the plant spread over the number of customers, so that people who connect to this now are having to contribute to the historic cost of having it in place, right? And I don't know what that calculation is, but because New Whiteland doesn't have a plant that's as big as others, and because we haven't added treatment facilities and other expansion improvements for a long time, our cost, our investment in that plant isn't as significant as it is other places. So ours shouldn't be as high.
Okay.
But it sure ought to be more than 1100, or we like for it to be, right?
Yeah, it should have been this the last time.
Well, but we had a rate consultant who ended up with that number.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and Matt, it was Matt who thought to make sure this, got done in anticipation of these connections coming.
So these tap-in fees, were they, what was in the fiscal study that we had done for the subdivision? Was it the old rate or was it a higher rate? Because they said there'd be $1 million something in tap-in fees.
So I believe they used our old rate because they knew that this was probably coming.
But that's what was
But
in
I
place.
didn't know what those fees were yet when
That's
they
good
put
to
it
know.
together.
That's
If I
good to know.
remember right.
Well, and the tap-in fee, I think, makes perfect sense. There's no reason not to do that. And I understand the math that they presented here, and that makes good sense. The rate, when you look at the utility the last 3 years, it's operated at a six-figure positive bottom line. We've then taken our operating expenses, made some pretty significant assumptions and increases, and said we're going to need that much. But I'm curious to know how we get from where we've been over the last however many years to the increase. You know, I looked through the numbers. Part of it was repairs, I think it was equipment, it was things like that. But I wonder, and this is for my own education, you know, a lot of what we do in the general fund, and I'm assuming we do it in the utility as well, is we over budget and then we underspend. And it looks like that rate increase is based on that over budget number. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
So, and, you know, and a lot of it is trying to, so I think the way I believe how he comes up with his rates is, you know, I gave him what, you know, basically the budget that we have currently, and then what a budget would look like, you know, well, so what the 2025 budget, I guess, would look like, and this is how he's basing his numbers off of. Now, I don't know how he does his, you know, if it's a certain increase, you know, how that works, I guess, but, you know, I think you'll probably see different this year with what the sanitation budget looked like, because I think it's probably a little closer to that zero mark than what we had in the past, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? I know you haven't done end of the year,
Yeah,
so,
we do end of year next week.
but
So
I think you're going to be closer to where we've spent a lot of that money that we had budgeted this year. Just because, to be honest with you, cost of, you know, repairs, maintenance, all that stuff is just going up. So,
Well,
You also, it's not that your rate consultant makes a recommendation for an increase and you either take that or nothing. It is a recommendation based on, you know, his analysis, and we will notice the rates that he has recommended. You can approve any increase less than that without providing additional notice. If you would decide we want to increase it more, we'd have to renotice a public hearing, and you can, but we still no. But you can go up to that amount and any increase, and sometimes it's phased in. Sometimes you see something in there in the way of projected improvements to the plant or replacement fund contributions. There may be debt falling off, which a rate consultant ought to know, but you may learn along the way during his presentation that, yeah, we want an increase, but we really don't want an increase at that much. And you certainly don't have to.
well, and I'm looking at the numbers, and I'll be honest, my wife has paid the bills for the entire 30 years we've been here. You know, when you talk about a $1 a month, I'm trying to find the right page. It looked to me like it was more than that.
It is.
It's more like looks like on average $6.40.
Yeah.
Right. It's roughly 15%. Is that?
It is
am I in the right-
15%.
Yeah,
Okay.
15.87%.
Well, and I realize we're talking about just a few bucks, but this amounts to a tax increase in my opinion. And I realize this is a fee for a service, but it's a municipal service, and call it a fee, call it a tax, call it whatever you want. A 15% increase at once, when I look at a bottom line that doesn't appear like we need much of an increase, gives me a little bit of pause, and maybe the consultant can help me understand that.
Yeah.
But kind of that gets back maybe to what Lee was saying. I want to do two things. I don't want to raise taxes, but I want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, so that when the plant needs an upgrade, and not an upgrade, maintenance. An upgrade is different. Maintenance, that we've got the cash to do it. So I kind of want to walk those two fine lines. And maybe the approach is, yeah, it's 15%, but we're going to spread it over 3 years, so it's 5% a year for the next 3 years. Maybe something along those lines.
That's become really popular.
I think that's easier to accept.
I can't remember how he projected it on this one. It's either 3 or 5 years. I can't remember. That's how he tries to look out through the future of 3 to 5 years as far as the cost of maintenance and operation costs.
Right.
So we're not trying to do increases every year and things like that.
I'd almost rather do a small increase there. Something that's justified by a
Oh,
study.
yeah.
I'm not saying just increase it,
Mhm.
but almost rather take a smaller chunk on an annual basis. I realize $6 a month it's not much. 15% seems like a hell of a lot.
I would agree. Yeah, it sounds I would think of it from a percentage. And I want to kind of go towards it a little bit where you talked about, improvements and stuff. But this is all really, I'll be honest, is based off of maintenance and operation.
Right.
We talked about like that dewatering system and stuff that, to be honest, we're going to end up having to look at that a lot sooner. I'm having major issues out of it here last month. So, you know, those are things we're gonna have to look at that may not even represent into this. So, but there was also conversation of, you know, if there's money that we have sitting around,
Right.
things like that.
And
So it
that's-
may
yeah.
not affect.
And those availability
I don't
fees.
want you, yeah, and availability fees.
Right.
So I don't want you to think that, okay, hey, this would cover that, because really it's not something that was planned into this rate study, was for stuff like that.
Right.
You know, like when we did the last rate study, I think a portion of that was because we did that project. So.
Right, this is really looking at maintenance operations, not
Yeah,
improvements.
pretty
Yeah,
much. Correct.
yeah. Well, and that's one, and now, of course, now I can't find it, but that's one of the other things I was looking at was the cash balance in those accounts. There's a fair amount of cash there for those sorts of things, and that's why.
Yes, and that was kind of, that's all planned through the budget.
Right,
You know, like,
right.
I think it's $140,000 we put back into other capital outlay, and that's got that whole outline of where that money's supposed to go, and it goes in there.
Right.
It's for those type of purchases, so.
Sure.
I know we want to not raise taxes any more than absolutely necessary, but I think it's also prudent on us to not do what I've seen a lot of other municipalities do. And they're so afraid, well, we can't raise taxes at all, that they get 10, 12 years down the road. It's like, oh my gosh, we're upside down. Now you get that 40% increase. And just to clarify, Lee, let's say we did approve the entire 94 cents and wanted to do it in a graduated, okay, we could make it whatever amount we wanted for each year, as long as we never went above that 94 cents. Then we would have to bring it up again. If, let's say something happened and, oh my gosh, we gotta make it $1.50.
Yeah.
Then we'd have to go through the whole,
We just go
hearing,
through-
the whole,
yeah.
do it all, start over again.
Right.
Okay.
But I think, you know, it's not so painful, like I said before, I've worried about, these rate hearings for 35 years, and have had about 2 occasions when they have presented any real problem that have been attended by a meaningful amount of people who really felt very strongly about it. You Cindy will, and Melissa will field some angry phone calls the first time the higher bills go out.
Right.
But that tends to be the fallout. Social media maybe makes a difference. You know, it wasn't here 30 some odd years ago, but that's what tends to happen. But don't know that for sure.
Okay.
Well, so this, if you look at page 14 of this, shows a 5-year pro forma.
Okay.
Should we assume then that 15% looks forward 5 years?
Yes.
So then maybe the answer is it's 3% a year every year for those 5 years. And that I think is a lot easier to
That's
swallow.
very palatable.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing that does to stay on that same track though is if you're bringing in less money in the first
Front, right.
right, you get
right.
that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
Okay, so just to be real clear, and I know we've not seen the presentation yet, but let's say we agree with that 3% per year. We get into year 3.
Yeah.
And, oh gosh, we need more. But
Yeah.
as long as we don't go above that 94 cents,
No, but
we can change that to, okay, we're gonna go from 3% to 5%.
No, you can do anything you want in 3
Okay.
years. You can decide, you know, we're going to increase it by 20% from this rate to the next. You can do whatever you want. The only requirement is before you increase it, you have to hold a public hearing.
Well, no, I'm saying if we're gonna stay within that parameter,
Right.
the 94 cents, if we all agreed, 3% is great, we can all live with that, nobody's got an issue.
Right.
But we get into the 3rd year and we need to go, instead of 3%, we need to go to the final 6%.
Yeah.
But we've still stayed under the 94 cents.
I think that if you're going to increase rates over what the ordinance that you adopt today says, you would have to hold a public hearing in order to do that. But that's all you'd have
Right,
to do,
okay.
is hold a public hearing.
But he's saying it would be under that. The ordinance says we're gonna take all of it at once.
Yeah.
If we decide to do 3 and 3, and then we decide, well, we need all the rest
Well,
of it. in the
the-
But
fourth
we're
year.
under
ordinance
the
doesn't say that.
94 cents.
The rate study says that. So if you adopt an ordinance in 2025 that says we're going to increase rates at this percentage each year over the next 5 years.
Okay.
And you get into the third year and decide, in this year, we're gonna increase it more. Because we gotta catch up. You're within the parameters of your rate study, but you have now deviated from
okay.
your ordinance.
Okay, perfect.
So how long is the rate study effective? Is it 5 years? So we've got.
It's not effective at all. It's just information
Okay.
for you all to rely on.
Have it, right?
It's when you adopt an ordinance that you have implemented these fees. You could do this without a rate study at all if you chose to.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any legal effect. It's just information for you to rely on.
Right. It would be hard to justify without.
Yeah.
It would, unless, in a case where, you really do think we need a 50-cent increase to
Some major repair.
yeah, or say you wanted to do a payment in lieu of taxes, and you wanted to charge utility for it, and you knew exactly what that number was gonna be, and how much money you needed to collect from,
Right.
something that you could do. I wouldn't have any problem there. But I think if you did something like this without a rate study, and then it was challenged, someone objected, how do we justify the decision?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not something that you would want to do except in extraordinary cases.
Sure.
But it doesn't bind you in any way at all. It's just expertise that you're relying on.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
I do have one question, and I don't know hydraulics, but if we're getting ready to add over the next several years, several more houses. We've added a couple over on 75 that are still relatively new. If I drive my car 10,000 miles a year and now I jump to 15,000 miles a year, I would expect more maintenance.
We will. I mean, your pumps are gonna, you got more flow coming in. They're gonna run more often. But what I will say, and this is something that you saying this, and it may have been a conversation I had with the rate consultant. We're getting ready to have this amount of people, did he take into consideration that we are gonna have more revenue coming because of these houses that, so it may kind of offset itself.
But I don't, you're gonna have significantly more revenue. In the rate study?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I assume so, but I don't know. That's a good question.
Because none of that is actually,
I'm
that
thinking back to the fiscal
subdivision
plan.
did not
Hadn't been approved.
pass or anything like that. I think he knew that, we were in the process of talking about, I just don't remember if he took into account that. And I would say no, that he didn't. So these numbers.
Well, if that's the case, there may not be a call for a rate increase at all.
You're right.
Right.
So, and hopefully that's questions he can answer.
Well, he can't. Again, this was all driven by needing to get this sewer availability fee in place. And for some marginal amount of additional money, he was just going to do a rate study of the overall utility.
Or even, go to it, maybe, because we'll say that neighborhood, you're probably at least 5 years out from that neighborhood being full. Maybe it doesn't need that full 15%. Maybe, it's just 6% or something like that, because that holds you off till that revenue's good.
But the availability fees, if he doesn't factor that into the rate, that would be something worth, I'll make a note to.
Send him.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, much like what you brought up, I would rather be ahead of the game with small increases and having a little cushion than we get under the gun and it's, well, crap, we've got to, we're spending 100,000 more than we ever anticipated, and now all of a sudden it's years down the road and we're upside down completely.
Because nobody looks at it and says, well, my rate hasn't gone up for 25 years. They're going to be pissed because their rate went up 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, and we've seen municipalities doing that, and I get it. You're trying to be fiscally conservative as we're doing, but you shoot yourself in the foot along the way.
But it has to be planned out,
Right.
and that's what happens to those municipalities. Is all of a sudden they're not planning it, or they're waiting for the other council to have to make that decision, knowing that it's coming.
Yes. Yeah. That's a dirty trick.
It is.
Well, and right now, the only one cheaper than us is Shelbyville. And if we did go with the full increase, it only adds Whiteland and Edinburgh being cheaper than us.
Yes, that slide actually amazed me, to be quite honest, or that page of breaking down, the municipalities around us, really how we were with our rates.
Yeah, I think Trafalgar just went through a significant increase.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Oh, that one made paper, yeah.
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 several times.
Yes.
Okay, that is everything under old business. Angela, you have anything old business to bring up? No? Lee?
No.
John? Nope. John?
No,
Matt?
So I'm just gonna kind of back up a little bit with that dewatering system. So I know that I had sent out a proposal to y'all, it was probably November when I got it back from the engineers. That's definitely something I think I'm gonna talk with the engineer and try to see what our next steps moving forward. Through the month of December when I was on vacation, that machine really went haywire. And it's not running right now. Even we've changed out a pump. I've got a new meter that is supposed to be overnighted from Canada today, to get it back up and running, in the hopes that does it. So, right now we're basically collecting solids and I don't have any place to put it. So, it's something we're gonna have to look at. I, went through and did some preventative maintenance while we have it down. Took some pictures of it where the inside of this machine's just rusting out. The current machine we have, it was a fairly new company, or new product from the company, back 15, 17 years, I think is how long we've had it now. They made a lot of significant changes where like their internals are stainless steel, but currently ours wasn't. So we have the issues of things rusting out where their new stuff doesn't. So just be on the lookout that's probably gonna be coming, so.
Back up a little bit and share with the council, the old business. I did meet with Bob Downey early in December to talk about code violations and had a good conversation. Said the council would like Bob to be more proactive, to go throughout the town and look for violations rather than waiting for complaints. One of the houses we talked about specifically was on Sawmill. What's that corner? You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
South
North
Lane.
Lane or South Lane?
South Lane.
South Lane, yeah, I think that's right. And I asked him to go to that house, and I don't see it on his list. And
I know that just in looking at it, they have done some cleanup there.
you think?
Yes, some. Not necessarily really significant, but there was some done there. That would be another one to bring to his attention again.
Bob was very open to it, said if that's what the council wants, I'll do. I don't know, it may behoove us, and maybe you guys know where the primary offenders are, but it may behoove us as a council to start telling Bob, here's one I think you need to go look at.
I've got one.
Dennis has one that he asked me about tonight, which.
And it goes back to the conversation we had at the planning meeting with, I can't remember his name, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff read me the riot act after the planning meeting about code violations, and he's right. He's right. There are clear, obvious violations that are long existent in town, and we're not addressing them, and I think we need to. So again, Bob was very open to that. I look at that house, and number one, I don't think it's on his list. But number two, I guess I haven't seen a lot of improvement. Maybe you have.
Like I say, there's been some,
Okay.
whether it's dramatic or not, but.
Yeah, but I think it probably behooves us to say,
Yeah.
okay, these are the places we'd like to have you focus on.
Yep. Since you brought that up, if you look at Bob's report that he gave us, most everything he's doing is inspection related. We need to make sure that Tim is still involved with everybody's got the copy.
Oh, okay.
That Tim is still involved with all of these, because he kind of let me know that he's not been notified. And I said, you're the building inspector. And so he needs to be aware of everything that's being inspected. So he was gonna have that conversation with Cindy. because I think that's kind of where it's being driven. And make sure that anything that happens, anything that gets inspected, he's at least made aware of so that he can go through the paperwork. Because if he doesn't see it and something fails, okay, it's on us. So he was gonna take care of that.
If I can
That's
make a
good.
recommendation.
Yes, please.
And, it needs to go to, whoever is sending this, getting the permits to talk to the people. Her first phone call needs to be to Tim Brown. Tim Brown at that point in time needs to divvy it out to Bob if it's something he can't get to. And I think it just needs to be clearly stated to, the individuals that are here, that that's the process. It goes to Tim Brown regardless if it's an inspection. If Tim decides that he wants to divvy it out to Bob, that's fine, because like you said, Tim Brown's name's the one doing it on it. Even though Bob may be the one doing the inspection, Tim Brown's the one that's gonna take the fall for it, because he's the inspector. But that's my opinion. And I know I've had that conversation already once.
Okay.
I think, John, actually, you asked me to have that conversation a year ago, I think it
Okay,
was.
well, this
And it was
conversation I had was within the last 4 weeks.
Yes.
So-
And I think that had to do with the commercial stuff, but it fell on deaf ears.
Okay.
And structurally, organizationally, Tim and Bob acting as an inspector are agents of the plan commission, not the town council. Now you ought to be interested in that, and you are, and I get it. But the president of the plan commission is telling them this is what ought to be happening, and it not only should he care because, like you say, his name's on it, he'll take the fall, but the town ought to care, because the reason we require inspections is to make sure that things are being done right. And Bob doesn't have any credentials or training to do anything other than look down at a footer or something, but that's the extent of it. So,
And if
this
falls on my
isn't a small
responsibility
problem.
Right, if that falls on my responsibility as plan commission, then, I'll have that conversation again with the ladies in office.
It is, I mean, they are agents of the plan commission, and yeah, I mean, it stops there. That's statutorily how it's structured, how it's organized.
If you're good with that process.
Absolutely.
let us say that-
That's
And redundancy is fine on this, because this isn't something that, this is important.
yeah. And I'm just gonna say this for what it's worth. There should not be any pushback whatsoever. This is, I mean, if the person whose name's on the paper is bringing it to my attention, then that means he's getting some resistance somewhere.
Okay.
So,
And I'll talk with Tim Brown too, to make sure that if he has those type of, tell me, talk to, call me, let me know that he doesn't feel he's being notified about it, and I'll make sure it happens before it has to wait for a council meeting or something like that.
well, he may not have known
So,
what Lee just explained, so, but, okay, we'll let Matt take care of that. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. We'll finish our new business then, memorandum of outstanding checks. Angela.
Yes, we've prepared a list, this is just housekeeping that we do every year. We're allowed to write off outstanding checks that are at least 2 years old. And so I've included in your packet the memorandum, which has the list, and then I believe I scanned in these documents as well, which show which checks those are. So again, yeah, it's just a yearly housekeeping item.
I think in the past, this is just something we've recognized and taken a, motion and a vote just
Right.
to put it on the
Yeah.
record, so, somebody like to make a motion to accept the memorandum?
Yeah,
John
I'll make the
Schlowski.
motion.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Dennis, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. Angela, any other new business?
I would just like to make a note that I know the DPW did an awesome job clearing the streets. I do want to say that too. Also, one of our officers this week yesterday, he shoveled 8 driveways, and
Wow.
I don't think he got paid for that. I think he was like shoveling driveways for people who needed help.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
So
And-
I just wanted to let you guys know that,
Somebody posted that on,
Facebook.
which one was that?
Jordan Holder felt-
And
Yeah,
also, it was on his free time, but not like he was
Yeah.
on duty with his free time. And he posted something, I think, on Facebook saying, telling people, hey, if you need help, let me know and I'll come do it.
Very nice.
wow, that's nice. That's nice. Thank you for bringing that up. Lee, other new business?
No, sir.
John? Dennis?
No.
John?
No.
You guys? Okay, ordinance 2024-13, the transfer for the CCMG match.
Yes, I made this one separate from the end of year cleanup because, just to kind of keep things organized, but this makes our 25% match, which was tricky this year because we had the project and then we had the reduction change order. So normally we would have done this a little bit earlier in the year, but I think it was mid-December when we got the rest of what we needed from NDOT. We had to pay some of that money back. And then, this is the amount that we just need to show in our bookkeeping that we came up with this 25%. That's what this does.
Okay. Do we have a motion on 2024-13?
Motion.
Motion by Dennis,
Second.
second by John Purdy. Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative, and since that was by majority vote, we don't need to do it again. 2014-14.
Yes, that's the end of year cleanup transfer because we're not supposed to end the year with any negatives. So that's just cleaning up any negative lines, which this year, it all fit on one page. In the past, we've had multiple pages. So
Maybe I'm not as bad as we all thought we were then.
It-
This invitation.
Good.
it wasn't actually this, I mean, yours was the most, but,
Okay.
Well, I know insurance, we were like making $17,000. So.
yeah, insurance is crazy this year, but yeah, so that's all this housekeeping, end of your housekeeping.
Okay. Do we have a motion on 2024-14?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by John Purdy,
Second.
second by John Schlotski. Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4 affirmative. Since we have majority vote, we'll do that one time. Resolution 2024-11.
This is another end of year housekeeping item. These are all purchase orders that we have, things to purchase with 2024 budget money that where we didn't have the invoice yet or something wasn't available yet. And so this allows us to still use that 2024 money instead of the 2025 money.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt resolution 2024-11? Motion by Dennis,
Second.
second by John Purdy. Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative. And ordinance 2025-01.
Yeah, I simply want to offer this for introduction tonight, which is the rate ordinance that you discussed earlier in the meeting. That is scheduled for public hearing on February 5th. And I'll make it a point to reach out to Bob tomorrow, and probably involve Matt too, to make sure he's aware that we're going to have some additional revenue coming in starting in a year, 18 months or something like that, and availability fees too, to see whether that will change his analysis or not, and if so, ask him to revise it, and have a revised one circulated to you before the February meeting.
Okay. Do we need to take any preliminary action on this
I
since
know,
it's going to be
I mean, we make a motion to introduce it, I
Okay.
suppose, yeah.
Okay.
Please.
And I did just have one question on it, on the very last page, and maybe we can get this rectified by the time he's here to present it. The very last sentence says, bill amount is not inclusive of, and that's where it stops.
On the appendix?
No, this is on the actual rate study.
Well, I'll do you one better. On the ordinance itself, and the accordingly paragraph in the first sentence, it says Princess Lakes.
Oh, well, that's awful.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't.
Well, you're sorry. What are you talking about? Where, John?
Page 1, I think, accordingly be it ordained that the town council for the town of Princess Lakes as follows.
Good catch.
So they're gonna pay for this somehow,
Yeah.
right?
That works.
Thank you.
If we can vote for that.
Our people would love us.
Now you wanna be in Congress.
That sounds right.
Yeah, our folks would love us.
That sounds right. Okay.
Okay.
And Dennis,
Yep.
where do you
Very,
read?
very last page, last sentence.
Passed and adopted on final reading?
This is on
The customer's average usage bill will be checked to verify that the pool was actually filled? Is that what you mean?
no, this is on the new Whiteland sewer rate study, very last page, bullet point number 2, which is the last sentence.
Well, we're looking at the ordinance.
Oh,
The rate ordinance.
I'm looking at the.
Oh,
rate
you mean
study.
to talk to Bob about?
No, part of the
Some of the verbiage
Was
just
left
drops
off.
off, and there's
Of the ordinance or the rate study?
of the
rate
rate
study.
study.
Okay. Okay, got it.
okay.
And so this says we're gonna put in the full 15.8% increase. Doesn't mean we have to
Right.
next month.
Correct.
But all we're doing now is.
But you can't do more than that.
Right,
Yeah.
we're laying the groundwork.
Yeah, so do we have a motion to introduce
That's right.
the ordinance?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by John Purdy.
Second.
Second by Dennis. Other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 affirmative, so it's been introduced. Okay, that is everything on this evening's agenda, so at this time, the meeting is open to the public, which there is none, so we are adjourned.
I was foiled by an apostrophe, I think, John Purdy.
Well, and